Hello, thank you for joining us for today's wellness video. My name is Angelica Guerrero, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in the role of a staff counselor at Hawthorne Elementary and Magnolia Elementary.
And I'm Aldana. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm a staff counselor at Fremont Elementary. And today we're going to be talking about emotions, trying to understand emotions, why they're important, how to cope with them. So with that being said, Angelica, what's your take on it? Why is it important for us to know what we're feeling?
I think this is a great topic because understanding our emotions is vital for our well-being. Emotions are energy in motion. It's what gives us an understanding or gives us a heads up when we need to make some changes or when we need to act on something. And really, it's what makes us human, having emotions. So our emotions aren't going anywhere. So it's better to have a good understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, I've heard it compared to like maybe a thermometer. Like it kind of gives you the temperature, the reading of the relationship or the situation. It kind of is an indicator of what's going on inside of you. Emotions aren't necessarily 100% true. You can always question them, but you won't have the indicator of the temperature of what's going on unless you're in tune with what you're feeling, right?
Right. Absolutely. Having emotions is what helps us build authentic and meaningful relationship with others. And unless we are having a good understanding of what emotions we're having at the moment, it's going to be hard for us to cope with them appropriately and process what's happening.
Yeah, it's kind of like labeling the problem. Once you know what you're feeling, then you can move on to knowing how to deal with those feelings, But if you're not in tune with what's going on inside of you, you're in reaction mode. You just react and you don't know why. So there's always a process of, stepping back, knowing what season you're in, knowing how you're doing emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And then you can see the underlying root of the emotions that you're expressing, right?
Right. So, and the reality is we all have different understanding of what emotions are, and it all has to do with the way we were brought up, with their culture, the way we perceive certain feelings. So, for example, if you think of somebody that every time they said that they were feeling sad as they were growing up and they heard the message of, you just have to suck it up. It's more likely for someone like that to repress their emotions, to not want to go with the feeling or just ignore that because they might think it's, being weak or it's not something that they should express to others.
True. It's like, you have preconceived notions of what emotions are acceptable growing up. You have cultural labels, like some emotions are good. It's good to be happy, or it's good to be easygoing, or it's good to, be joyful. And you have some emotions that society, people you look up to have said are bad, like anger and sadness. And the truth is, emotions, like you had mentioned, it's just a human experience. They're not good or bad. They're just indicators. And then the other thing that you want to take in consideration is the cultural factors that might affect it. So, for example, we have clients that come from the Latin community and that they're used to just not dealing with emotions, just working hard, depression, mental illness isn't a real thing. Your parents might kind of be dismissive, like, I went through a lot and I just worked hard, and, not be validating. Or you have, maybe like Asian culture where the respect of the elders is something that's most important, and your feelings take a back seat to their desires. So cultural, family influences, those things play a factor in how in tune you are with them, your emotions, and how you see them.
Right. I like what you said about how emotions aren't good or bad. And that's the reality. I mean, sometimes there's shame to where you don't want to experience certain emotions because you might feel like, I'll give you an example. Right now we're, going through this pandemic. And so some of us might feel like, oh, well, I shouldn't be suffering or shouldn't be sad because I have a job and I'm healthy. And so we kind of shame ourselves for feeling scared or worried. But the reality is it's okay to feel that way. It's okay to feel worried and grateful. And there's really no right emotion to feel or to not feel. Sometimes we just have to sit with that emotion we're experiencing it and be okay with it.
Yeah. So now we get into the next part, which is kind of like identifying the emotions that you're feeling, right? So part of it is, Angelica had mentioned the quality of your relationships kind of depend on you labeling and knowing what you're feeling, what you're going through, right? So there's unconscious and conscious emotions. There's situations where you're going to know exactly why you feel the way you do. This situation made me angry. It hurt me because of this, this, and that. There's going to also be times in your life where you're reacting, but you haven't really stopped to think, where are these feelings coming from? Why am I feeling this way? So it's very important to know, like, how you express anxiety, how you express anger, what's going on inside yourself physically. Sometimes with anxiety, let's say you can snap at somebody, and it might be a time where, like, let's say right now where we're in a pandemic and anxiety is high. Even though you don't think it's affecting you, you might realize that, your heart rate is just higher, your palms are sweaty, you're reacting differently. So maybe you want to do a check-in with yourself and go, maybe I am anxious. Maybe this is affecting me.
Right. So I think one of the important things to do is kind of broaden our emotional language and understand that there's a lot of different emotions underneath what is just obvious. So if I'm feeling angry, what are other emotions that could be underlying, the anger? Are you feeling impatient? Are you feeling like you've been offended somehow? So looking at what is at the root of that emotion you're feeling. Same thing with, like you mentioned, anxious, happy. What is exactly the root of that emotion, and where is it coming from? Especially when it's something like, anger, anxiety. Unless we know where it's coming from, how can we truly cope with it or resolve it if we aren't aware where it's coming from?
I like how you said broadening our emotional vocabulary, because I think that if we keep it to saying I'm just so angry all the time, we don't get to the root of what's happening, right? So there could be a big situation, but if I take a little chunk of what I'm feeling, I can deal with that little chunk versus getting overwhelmed with this big situation, right? So that's why it's important to know to just grow our emotional vocabulary and just label exactly what we're feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it sounds easy, but in reality, it's not, right? So sometimes it's hard to find that trusted person that you feel comfortable with, just sharing your emotions and kind of talking it through, processing it through. One of the helpful things that you could do is journaling. So jotting down your emotions could be a good way to help you label the emotion, understand where it's coming from. So journaling is a very powerful way to kind of release those thoughts, feelings, and kind of not let it have control over you. And then you can kind of reread what you're writing. It'll help you label what it is that you're feeling at that moment. Is it you're feeling angry or sad or scared? Why? And kind of process it that way as you write it.
Yeah. So one of the things that, the takeaways from this discussion is what are the preconceived notions that you have about emotions? What were you taught about your feelings growing up? What do you expect from the people you're in relationship with? How do you expect them to express? Does that get in the way of the relationship, right? Whether it's your kids, your significant other, your friends. The other thing is, how do you express emotions personally? Are you in tune with how you're feeling? Are you always aware when, you need a little bit more self-compassion, self-validation, self-care for yourself? So those are a few things that you want to think about. And the other thing is you want to do mindfulness check-ins every so often. So mindfulness check-ins are just, take 30 seconds of silence, quiet yourself, quiet your mind, quiet everything around you, and just check in. Just ask yourself, like a friend would, how are you doing? What are you feeling? What's really going on? And having the ability to not judge yourself for anything that you're feeling and accepting what you're feeling in that moment, it's okay. Whatever comes up in that moment is okay, and practicing self-compassion. Some of us are really good at giving good advice, at validating our friends, but we don't validate ourselves. And the 30 seconds of mindfulness is just a moment of, I'm anxious or I'm angry or I'm tired, and that's okay. And just being real with yourself and creating a safe space, So we want to just recommend mindfulness check-ins just to know where you're at, and also the journal prompts.
Yeah, no, I love that, Maria. I love the checking in because you're right. So just kind of taking a moment throughout your day and kind of figuring out, where am I right now? What do I need? Because again, emotions give us, prepare us for something that we might need. Or so where am I at right now? Am I feeling this? Am I feeling that? What do I need at this moment? And how can I have my needs met? Sometimes we, if you're having a bad day, you don't stop and check in with yourself and see what the root of the problem is until it's been, a little too late and you've already yelled at so many people or you've already reacted in so many ways. So having that structure to stop and check in with yourself and see, what is it I need today? And remembering emotions come and go. Like, emotions do not define us. And there's so many emotions that go, throughout our day, that we need to be able to figure out where we're at, label it, and see what it is that we need to do about it.
Yeah, and that's where coping comes in, right? When you create an environment within yourself where you're validating your emotions, you're not judging yourself or beating yourself up about them, and you're able to deal with them, then you're able to expect the same thing from other people, give the same compassion to them, and also deal with their emotions well. But you're also, able to communicate when in your relationships what you're feeling, put words to it, and trace back, instead of kind of being stuck in reacting and just flying off the handle or saying things that you don't mean. Just kind of really sitting down and getting to the root of it. So today we talked about why emotions are important. We talked about stigmas and cultural biases of emotions. We talked about conscious and unconscious emotions that can be linked to physical well-being. We also talked about labeling emotions, expanding your vocabulary, mindfulness check-ins, and we also talked about just kind of coping with any emotions, right? So we'd love to hear from you guys. If you guys have any questions, we're going to include a journal prompt, like Angelica was talking about with our discussion, and we look forward to hearing from you guys.
Absolutely. And also look forward to looking for the different labels or different emotions to help you label your emotions.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.